People are returning to work after the Chinese New Year celebrations inaugurating the Year of the Snake. And if you follow my channel, you know that it's my Chinese New Year tradition to release a video looking at how multinational firms, and specifically how marketers, deal with the Chinese New Year. In this video, first I'm going to share with you why Chinese New Year celebrations have been more modest than usual. There are a couple of reasons for this, some of them economic, some of them cultural, and I'm even going to tell you a secret that is going to quietly snake through 2025. You saw what I did with the snake there. I'm also going to tell you how multinational companies, marketers dealt with the challenge of using the snake as a visual representation to engage and excite their customers, which is not always easy. And finally, although I cannot share with you the kind of scandals that I did in past year's Chinese New Year videos, because it seems multinational companies are learning a lot about Chinese traditions and how not to upset Chinese customers during the Chinese New Year, I'm still going to share with you one cultural issue which tripped up a couple of companies, and I think marketers must be aware of that. So let's see what the snake year brings to us. My name is Gabor Holch. I'm an intercultural leadership coach, consultant, speaker, and author. I'm the author of the book Dragon Suit, which is about expatriate executives in China. And after 20 years of living in China, I currently split my time between Europe and Asia. There are several reasons why Chinese New Year was more low-key this year than what we have been used to in many years before. One reason why the Chinese New Year celebrations have been relatively low-key this year is that China's economy is not in its most exciting stage right now. Although there is considerable increase in consumption of anything from things that people buy to services such as travel, food, and beverage, in comparison to the pandemic years and the years immediately after the pandemic, it still stays far behind the years before the pandemic. And specifically, consumer confidence, which is simply put the appetite for people to buy, lags far behind the last couple of decades. Now, of course, as many people point out, China still remains a large and dynamically growing market, but this kind of crisis of confidence already shows in China's attractiveness for global firms. According to a recent report by the American Chamber of Commerce, there is an increase in companies that do not prioritize China as one of their top 3 markets. Another reason why Chinese New Year celebrations and campaigns are a little bit lower key than we are used to is that simply multinational companies are preoccupied with some other priorities. Their supply chains have been disrupted, there is a lot of geopolitical interference with business, and also there is a lot of volatility surrounded or caused by Donald Trump's second presidency. And finally, not all the reasons why this year's festivities are relatively low-key are economic. Some of them are cultural. And to understand that, we must place the snake year into the context of Chinese traditions, the Chinese zodiac as it is, and how traditions influence business today. One such cultural reason is that the snake year follows immediately the dragon year, and of course many of you know that the dragon is the king of the Chinese traditional zodiac calendar among all the animals. It was the imperial sign of China. It is one of the prides of Chinese cultural heritage, and it pops up in everything representing China, from seals, products, packaging, and titles of books about China, including mine, Dragon Suit. Now, since it immediately follows the mighty dragon, the snake must accept that it remains in the shadows a little bit. The snake here is a little bit like an after party to the dragon year, and accordingly Chinese people often call the snake the small dragon, or Shaolong, which is coincidentally also the name of a kind of dumpling. Not so majestic, is it? There might be another interesting cultural reason which I heard from friends who are very knowledgeable about traditional Chinese culture, and specifically how traditional Chinese culture influences politics and economics in China today. You see, astrological traditions hold that the year of a given animal is not particularly good for people who were born in the corresponding year. So for example, the snake year is not particularly good, not particularly lucky or auspicious for people who were born in the snake year. People who were born in the year that is the same as this current year, they must manage their life that year very carefully, and they must avoid risky decisions. If you were born in the snake year and want to ward off evil, it's not too late to put on some red clothing. And if you want to hide it because red is not one of your favorite colors, it's still not too late to put on red underwear or bracelets. And for China's economy and politics, this is relevant because the snake year is the birth year of no other than China's party and state leader, Mr. Xi Jinping. So you might see we must be especially careful this year. Now combine all this and put yourself into the shoes of people who are designing marketing campaigns for the most shopping frenzied time of the year in China. And you will see that in comparison to the magnificence of the dragon, the playfulness of the monkey, or the cuteness of the rabbit or the pig, it's hard to make the snake look, I don't know how to say it, attractive, engaging, motivating. As far as I saw this year, companies overcame this dilemma in 3 different ways. One of them, just add the snake to anything that you would use otherwise. Add it to posters, add it to packaging, add it to the product itself. So not the most creative solution, but you just add a snake and then you are ready for the Chinese New Year. Okay, so there are fairly unimaginative ways of doing this, like this poster for a dentist in Shanghai that I saw recently. As you can see, all right, it has a little bit of everything. It has a snake, it has a lucky coin, it definitely has a tooth, which tells you what the person does. But it is not something that will turn a lot of heads, in my opinion. Some marketers use their imaginations a little bit more, and I think one example is when they turned the numbers for the year 2025 into the snake. But even though the snake is not particularly a cute, cuddly, or to some people attractive animal, where it was a real asset was for marketing jewelry. There was some really beautiful jewelry with the snake pattern here, from very simple pendants like this one here up to several $1,000 masterpieces like this one here. So if you want to make a snake cool, obviously you have to turn it into a bracelet or some other kind of jewelry. Those who didn't want to add a snake, they found another venue, which is basically add snake patterns. If you want to find anything beautiful about the snake, it is the scales, the pattern, and the colors. Again, there were some less than creative uses of this kind of visual language, like this shopfront, which this is a shopfront in Shanghai, which used to be the friendship store. And as you could say, I think some visual designers said, is the snake here? Let's add a little bit of snake pattern. It is going to be festive enough. You can see the same on some packaging or some greeting cards this year. But when it comes to adding snake patterns, obviously there were marketers for a certain product group who were really in their element, and that was fashion. Snake patterns and snake skin has been extremely fashionable for a very long time. There are some limitations to it today because, using snake skin is not always considered an environmentally friendly solution, but still, obviously, it inspired a lot of fashion marketers, from the very obvious, like these ones, to the not so obvious, like this Birkenstock luxury snake pattern pair of sandals, which is an interesting choice for a holiday that is, after all, in the middle of the winter. Anyway, I am sure that there is a market for this. And finally, if you didn't feel that adding a snake or adding snake patterns is enough in any way, there is a third avenue, which is following an age-old tradition for Chinese New Year advertising, or the visual language of Chinese New Year, which is making things cute. As I mentioned in my previous videos, and some people found issue with that, Chinese New Year, just like Christmas and Easter, is a tacky holiday. It has to have bright colors, it has to have a lot of jingles, a lot of gold, a lot of noise if you are using sounds as well. And the snake, well, while it's not an obvious choice, some marketers found some very creative solutions. Some didn't. I found some very funny attempts to make the snake lovable or cute, like this one on the shelf of a hotel lobby. I mean, they added a royal crown, but otherwise, this is a fairly challenged attempt to create a memorable snake, in my opinion. On the other hand, in the same hotel lobby, I found this toy, which is a cute snake. I have the fleeting suspicions that some of the cute snakes were actually recycled from the dragon year, but who cares, because snake is again the small dragon, but look how lovely it is. Or even better, look at this adorable snake dressed as a snake. I think this must be my absolute favorite example of the snake being made cute for Chinese New Year. Now, part of the tradition of my New Year videos is to share with you some scandals where multinational companies really goofed up their Chinese New Year campaigns. But it seems that multinational companies are learning, because I find fewer and fewer of these examples. That is undoubtedly good news. But in China's increasingly politically charged environment, that doesn't mean that this is smooth sailing from now on. Although I didn't find any scandals surrounding the Chinese New Year campaigns of a particular brand, I found quite a lot of controversy surrounding the alternative terms Chinese New Year and Lunar New Year. Lunar New Year and Chinese New Year, for a long time they were interchangeable, because after all, the Chinese New Year follows the lunar calendar. And in years immediately preceding the pandemic, Lunar New Year was cherished by the marketing community as a way to make this holiday more inclusive, to celebrate the diasporas with Chinese cultural traditions or Chinese heritage in many different countries on the world, and also as a nod to holidays in many Asian countries that go back to traditional roots related to Confucianism, specifically Vietnam's Tet or corresponding holidays in Japan and Korea. However, as I found out, some online communities in China took issue with marketing campaigns that dropped the Chinese and used lunar instead. Their national pride was hurt, and they demanded that companies call it Chinese New Year. Not nearly as a momentous scandal as some of the ones that I shared in my previous videos, but I think marketers should still pay attention and use the corresponding terms in corresponding markets so that they can avoid some negative publicity. To summarize it, there is some challenge in presenting the snake as a festive, engaging, inspiring animal, but I think even though the marketing environment, the economy, politics doesn't make it easy, I think international marketers made the best of a challenging situation. We saw some great examples, some glamorous examples, some cute examples, which teaches us exactly what the snake is all about. You know, it knows when to move, it knows when to swing into action, it knows when to hide, bide its time, and observe. So, in other words, and I very much agree with it, the snake year is going to be exactly what we make of it. Thank you very much for your attention. Gongxi Fazai. I hope it was useful. Please reach out to me if you want to go a little bit further than a video and want to work with me as a coach, as a speaker, as a trainer. Find the links in the show notes, book a free call, and yes, as I always say, find me online and drop me a line.